So last week we were reading about the trap of egoism. So maybe we read this, but I want to kind of start from here today. What is the higher self or thou? How do we define higher self? Sometimes we mistakenly think that the higher self is God. But then how do you define God? So Babaji was asked this question several times. He said, what is God? He said, God is God. What else can you say about God? Anything you say other than God is God, it falls short. You cannot define it. It doesn't give a complete picture of what that is. But God being omnipresent, omnipotent, all pervading, where can you put a finger and say this is God? Wherever you say this is God, it is God. So, because it envelops everything and it is there in everything. So how can you say something which is not and something which is? So that's why, from a very matured spiritual thinking, it doesn't have any opposites. It doesn't have anything synonymous to it. It is the one kind, and it is the only kind. So that which is everywhere, like then it is kind of thought of as a principle, correct? So it's like this, where is gravity on Earth? It is everywhere. You don't say gravity is in China. Yes, it is in China, it is in America, it is in Timbuktu, wherever you want to point. It is there. But where do you experience it? Wherever you are. Because you are able to sit, stand, digest our food, the blood circulation, all our survival depends on the existence of gravity, right? Otherwise, we cannot even survive, we cannot even walk. So, where can you experience that which is everywhere, the higher principle, wherever you are? So, where can you experience the higher? Wherever your heart and mind is pointing to. So, that is why we meditate on the divine presence in our heart for many reasons. The number one reason is that which is everywhere can be only recognized within you. You cannot cognize outside you. Because there is no instrument in us which it can cognize outside. Some scriptures say when you recognize it inside, you recognize it everywhere. But the kind of examples they give, they quote, are very rudimentary, in my opinion. It's like the ornament. Ornament is made of gold. So they say the reality of the ornament is gold, and the ornament is only an appearance. The real thing is the gold, ornament is just an appearance. So it kind of defeats the purpose of approaching this higher. These kind of examples. Okay, understood. The gold is the principle of an ornament. But just by understanding the ornament is made of gold doesn't mean I see gold everywhere. So to see, to know, With, they say in Vedas, Veda means the to know. With means to know. To know, you need a contrast. If you understand this, you'll understand most aspects of the spirituality. To know, to cognize, to realize, there has to be a contrast. If there is no contrast, you cannot recognize it. In fact, if there is no contrast, mind goes berserk. Like, in the when the people go to North Pole, they put goggles. Not only they just put goggles, they put colored goggles. You know why? Because it is the wide range of snow covered. Everything anywhere you see is only white. So you can go colorblind within minutes if you're not putting goggles in those places because there is no contrast. So knowing, I mean, anything, all happiness, sadness, all the emotions we go through only when there is contrast. Okay. So to know it requires contrast. Now that which is everywhere, omnipresent, omnipotent, how do you know by contrast? Because there is no contrast to it. So then we kind of get into this topic, something is real and something is only an appearance. And you remove the appearance, you will see the real. That's how the most of the Vedant is practiced. But where is your focus? You keep on removing the unreal. It's like digging a well. You take the sand or soil out of the ground. Imagine if there is an infinite well. How long can you go on digging? You will never achieve it. On the contra, what meditation makes it is to see the water. If everything is water, then what is the need for digging? There is no need for digging. So, through meditation, we are connecting with the divine that makes everything everywhere is the water. So, here, knowing is not the key, knowing is not essential. Anything knowing is only the appearance in the consciousness. Anything which appears in consciousness is not the consciousness itself, right? So, when I'm looking at this computer, it is appearing in my consciousness. The words you are hearing is appearing in your consciousness and my consciousness. So anything which is known is not itself. So that is why there is no need to know. Then what is the solution? The solution is only to become. Then how do you become? So by through meditation, with the help of transmission plays a greater role. I think we need to have one session on just transmission itself. We'll do that. So when by meditating on the divine presence within, is sort of there is no knowing here, but this consciousness merges, becomes one with the divine itself. So there is no appearance here, there is no reflection here. So the mind, consciousness, all everything sort of melts into that divine presence within. We call that meditation. So that's why, very superficially, when we talk about meditation, or do I have thoughts during meditation, or I don't have thoughts during meditation, or today I felt so good because there is so much transmission I felt. These statements you hear all the time. So what are you enjoying there? The only the contrast, the transmission, the tranquility, the calmness which the meditation is bringing to you. But that is only it's like the breeze. You feel the breeze. But that's not our goal. So to become the breeze itself is our goal. To become that essence which we are meditating is the goal. So to become that higher self is the goal. But here, goal means somewhere you have to reach. But the interesting thing is the goal is always with you. The presence of the goal is always there in you. The presence of the higher is always there in us. So that which is already there. That's why in meditation we are meditating on something which is already there. See, lot of times we misunderstand this meditation. People say, I meditate for peace. The moment you say, I meditate for peace, what is the idea? That you are not at peace. So you are trying to meditate on something which is not there with you mentally. So what is the effect that kind of a meditation gives? It gives you the opposite effect, means you become non-peace. So the principle of meditation is you become that which you meditate on. So here we are meditating on the divine presence, knowing that it is already there. That means we are not bringing any new divine presence into us. Number one rule of meditation. So we are meditating on something which is already there. We should always meditate on something which is already there. Then it comes multifold. It becomes part of you. You become part of it, it becomes part of you. Then you can say that I am with the higher. Though it is always there with you. Now this is a more of a feeling of being. So the feeling and knowing and again two different things. Feeling means we are with it. That's why we feel. Knowing means we know the characteristics of it. It appears in the consciousness. But feeling is the consciousness itself. That's why the Ajay says we are moving from thinking to feeling, feeling to becoming. Once I know the state, feeling is nothing but the state of that being. Once I know the state, it gets refined more and more. And that's exactly what is happening in our mind region, in the journey of the mind region. So that basically answers what is the higher self or thou. So I'll pause here for any questions before I read further or comments. All right. So the journey through mind region asks us to sublimate the ego to its purest form. In this context, sublimate means to make nobler and purer. We are not pushing down or dominating our egos, but rather refining them to a higher status. All our efforts are directed at changing the form, not the essence. So the essence is unchangeable. So whenever we talk about higher, the higher is unchangeable. We are only saying higher or lower for a sake of understanding, but you cannot really say anything. It is, that's it. So now this whole concept of purity is also misunderstood very much. And just the word purity, I'll tell you, this word killed all spiritualities, all religions. Means it made us unfollow everything. So the purity should not be misunderstood. This term should not be misunderstood. What is pure? So we should always go with an idea that we are already pure. In fact, when we are doing the cleaning, the attitude which we should bring into that cleaning is that we are already pure and then do the cleaning. So it's like this, when you turn on the light, the darkness goes away. Now the question is darkness pure or the light is pure? So how do you define? We kind of feel darkness as impure. It represents, unknown. The light represents known. But Babuji said a true spiritual, matured spiritual entity is in the darkness itself. Tamas, he called it. Where there is no light is present. That's why in the reality of the dawn, he explains the color of the God essence is that of the dawn. It is neither dark nor light. So that's why this purity, the concept of purity, kind of the moment I want to become pure, like again, it's the same thing. The moment I want peace, that means I am not at peace. The moment I say I have to become pure, that means you are not pure. Then you start digging the well. You keep on taking the soil out. It's an infinite well. You dig forever. That's why we should always start with this idea that I am pure. There is nothing impure in this world. So when I am pure, all that I am connected to, all that I cognize must be pure. Means all my interactions with the people, they are supposed to be pure, right? I've even seen some people, you know, the more they get into heartfulness or any other spiritual practice, this is nothing specific to heartfulness. But I'm telling you, the more religious, the more spiritual they thought they became, they say everyone else is impure. Oh, I spoke to that guy. I had a headache. He's so impure. So gross is the word. Vivekananda said anything you recognize outside has to be within you. Otherwise, you won't recognize. So what does that make you when you recognize the grossness in the other person? Even when you recognize the grossness in yourself. Okay. So this idea of purity itself is impure. For the sake of the word, the pure, to make nobler and purer means we start refining that ego. We kind of thinking about a possibility from a pure state to the more refined state. That is the word purer is used. You can only be a purer when you are pure. You see, you have to understand this word correctly. And Babaji used it very much correctly. Purer means you are already pure and you are refining it. So that's how we should think as the ardent seekers of spirituality. We must start with the highest bar because it's mental construct. You can move the mental construct anywhere. You can make it to the lowest, you can make it to the highest. It's just a supposition. It's just a way of understanding, way of perceiving things. You get it? So when we work on ourselves to sublimate the ego, we preserve its essence of humility and allow it to manifest in our lives. So our thinking, our attitude manifests everything in our life. That's very important what we manifest. And what we manifest depends on the refinement of the ego. If the ego is not refined, the manifestation is also accordingly. Because the ego is driving the suppositions of life. You know what they call the sankalpa, the what I am willing is always willed through ego. If there is no ego, there is no willing. If there is no willing, there is no existence. So that's why, since we are beings in the space of existence, in the realm of existence, ego is very much required. And that ego has to be refined from pure to purer and from to a state of nothing. That's what we are working on here. So the I-ness is not the problem. The refined I-ness is what we are striving for. So the ego creates I-ness, which is our sense of self. Without the sense of self, could you imagine I, me, and mine? So these I, me, and mine tendencies add up to subtle way. So there, where we start identifying ourselves with all that is mine. So we sort of discussed this idea of identification and how we want to progress towards the real identification towards that higher self. We did discuss in length, so I'll pause here for any comments, questions. Otherwise, we can get into meditation. Okay. So I'm pausing the recording. I just want to share one thing. All these discussions I'm recording and keeping it on my YouTube channel. I believe most of you have the channel information. So I called it meditation underscore practices. You can search on the YouTube. I'll also share it with you guys. So there are whatever the presentations I made so far, you can see them here. There are almost about uh, close to 200 sessions here. And all our spiritual anatomy sessions, I'm recording and keeping it here. So if you go to the playlist under spiritual anatomy, the sessions from the beginning are here, right? So you can, hear them and follow them. If you have any questions, you can share it. Or if you have any comments, please share it so that we can, refine it more and more. So you can see, there are some general topics I've discussed with different groups. Okay. And if you get a chance, listen to this question and answers I had with one of the senior preceptor. So there's a bunch of information here. So if you are interested, you can always check this channel out. If you subscribe, every time I put a video, you'll get an alert on your YouTube. All right. So I'll stop sharing. And today we have Rao Garu. Rao Garu, can I request you to conduct the satsang today?
Okay, brother.